Funsie podcast. It is me, myself, and I. No Millie, no Benny Boy. Where are they? So if you guys remember back, Ben was all mysterious. You couldn't tell us where he was going. He really set it up like he was going to be gone for an extended amount of time. And then he had to disappear again this week for the premiere of the show that he was on. I still didn't know what it was. This past weekend, I was watching YouTube. A commercial comes up. The Mr. Beast game show. Ding dong, right there. Knew. I was like, that has to be it. And confirmed that is where our boy has been. So when that premiere, I don't even know when that premieres, but everyone should check that out to see if our boy is on there. As for Millie, over in Seattle, I believe, Seattle area, he's coming back today. I didn't tell anyone that I was just going to do a solo pod. Everyone said they're going to be traveling and whatnot, so here I am. I'm doing it. I came up with a couple things that we're going to talk about today. Instead of me just droning on being like, yeah, how was my week? Oh, my week was super. Oh, I threw a couple frisbees, saw a few deer. No one cares. So I'm going to try to do some sort of prompt. Is it basic? Yeah, it's pretty basic, dude, but it's fun. This might be our holiday episode. Again, have not confirmed if we're doing a podcast next week, like right before the holidays. So this might be. It's okay. Dude, we got it hooked up for viewers. We got the Funsie ornament on the wall, the Another Round ornament, and then our respective Sajko and Yara stockings. So I think today the focus is going to be, I want to shout out the In the Bag podcast. I have not been on as a guest yet, but when I got to meet those guys, I let them know. I'm like, I've been listening since the very first episode. I love what you guys are doing. Said this previously on this podcast, make fun of In the Bags because everyone's doing them, even though no one should care. But having said that, I love them. I love seeing beginner, seasoned veteran, top pro, whoever it is. I think it's interesting. It's just funny that everyone puts them out. But this is a prompt that they ended up doing like a month or so ago. And I thought it would be fun for me to do here. But with a twist. That's what you got to do. Take something, make it your own. So I'm going to go over my personal top 5 favorite molds and my top 5 least favorite molds. I have to preface, of course, these are not bad discs. They're just bad discs for me. Or maybe I don't see the value in myself using them. Or there's various reasons that I'm sure I'll get into as we go through them. It's something fun where you're like, oh, I want to see like what this person likes. If you're like me and you enjoy watching some of those in the bags, this is for you. These discs are in no particular order. I just made a list of frisbees. Maybe you've heard them on the podcast, like here and there, of like things I'm like, I don't like that, I don't like that. There's definitely some that you haven't heard because I had to think about it. I'm like, because I'm the kind of person, I like to throw whatever, really. Like hand feel, stuff like that. It doesn't bother me too much for a lot of discs. I'm like, hey, what's that? Cool, I want to throw it. I'm also a weird dude in the sense that like if there's a disc that I throw and I don't understand or I don't like it, I'm like I like push against it. I'm like, oh yeah, well I'm gonna keep throwing it just to like figure it out. Like that's how my brain works, dude. Maybe someone out there can echo that sentiment. We'll start with least favorite, I suppose, and then we can end it sweet on a good note as opposed to being like, yo, what's up? I hate that disc. Anyways, Funsie out. See ya, y'all. I'm not going to say that these are like hot takes per se, but this first one will probably upset some people. First one for my least favorite molds is the Modern Sea Line FD. FDs are a cult. We all know that. People love them. I have one right here in preparation. Also, heads up, this is probably going to be a decently visual podcast if you would like to watch it, but I will, of course, do my best to just talk about everything. And I listen to podcasts, just audio only. But hey, to each their own. FD, man, listen, I should like this Frisbee. Most people like this thing. I don't. I know what it's supposed to be, but it does not behave that way for how I feel like I view it. So for my game, I will either hit it on hyzer and it's like a little bit more overstable than I would expect it to be and it'll fade out, or I'll hit it flat and I'll get it to hold over more so. So I'm never hitting it. I feel like when you see the FD, people talk about it like just you have a long wooded fairway, like a tunnel shot, and it's just like, oh, pipe job, bing bong, hit it with the FD. That's not really how I'm finding this disc. It's almost kind of like these. I almost found when they came out and I was trying them, they were kind of almost T-Bird level, and that's not really what I was looking for. It's obviously a me problem. Let's be clear. I'm not saying it's a bad mold by any means. Having said that, haven't tried any other plastic for the FD. I've tried like the old Innova ones, as everyone knows. Those are sick. I enjoyed those, like hyzer flip galore and whatnot. Yeah, not my jam. Not sure why. All right, number 2, we have the Entropy, the MVP discs Entropy. Name one person that you've played with in your life that throws an Entropy. That's correct. Maybe you're that person. I have never known anyone that has thrown it. I was super stoked when I found one in the store before because I'm like, let's go, dude. Overstable gyro. Let's get after it. You pick that thing up and you're like, oh. Yeah, I'm going to donate this puppy for sure. Honestly, so much time has passed that I don't entirely remember how it felt because my brain just probably tried to bury that memory as deep down in the recesses of my brain as possible. But I remember it did not feel good, man, at all. And it was even by like overstable like approach disc standards, it was pretty beef dog for sure. You like that? ASMR coffee sip. That do anything for you? Yeah, that's enough about that. Moving on. Number 3. This one, this one's a little odd. I feel like, first I'll say, is the Innova Beast for least favorite molds. And I'm sure this stems from like seeing a champion Innova Beast when I first started and being like, oh, I can yeet that puppy. And then throwing it and seeing how overstable it is. That's just a feeling that gets imprinted in your brain. And then you're like, you just continue going through life being like, oh, I don't like that disc. I don't like that disc. Recently, I went back to it to go try to throw it. Champion Beasts, still kind of a beef dog. I've never, having said that, never thrown, it's like the FD, have never thrown another plastic type of the Beast. Because I know like you can get some sick flip ups. I have some old like berry runs where they do flip up, but obviously that's beaten in, and they're sick. But like the Freshie boys, dude, it's kind of like it's pretty much just like another Fundy in my opinion. Which again, that's not a bad thing. But when you're expecting like this sick flip up and all these cool shots, I was kind of let down in that sense. Maybe that's my fault. I'm sure it is. Number 4, least favorite molds. I'm going to go with the MVP Wave. For the Wave, for whatever reason, I think it's the flight that does it for me. That is like the most bizarre part about this disc. It seems like when I throw it, so for me it was like a hyzer flip to like turn and come out kind of disc. When I would throw it, I've never felt that shot shape feels so sterile. I don't know if like that is the proper way that I can think to describe it. It looks like it flips fast and it like comes out kind of quickly. It doesn't feel like it's like pushing and gliding on those lines where you're like, dude, I smacked that thing. It just feels like it's almost like a vector where it's like, oh, went this way. Oh, went this way. It felt very oddly mechanical and somehow made an S shape feel unsatisfying. Let me know if anyone else has any idea what I'm talking about or if you experience this with that disc. Because when you hit like a destroyer, Shrike, anything, and you hit those lines, it feels so good with that disc. Oddly, I felt nothing. I felt nothing at all. And that's I think that's the first time I've ever felt that with a distance driver, and hitting like what felt like how the disc is supposed to be kind of shaped, like hitting that sweet flight. I felt nothing, and normally I would be attached to that kind of flight, but nada. And the last one here, no one probably throws this disc, is the Prodigy PA4. So I went to my local store recently. I hit the used rack That's how I enjoy disc golf, finding like all these sick used gems. And there was this old 400 PA4 that was there, really sick stamp on it. So I picked it up, and I had thrown a PA4 previously one time, and it was really flippy, but also my form has kind of come like a long way. So I'm hitting stuff pretty like nose down now. There's get like good pop on them. I was like, it was probably a me problem. So I was like, yo, let me purchase this thing. Let's check it out. Could be sick. Having thrown it, the thing is just super flippy still. And this disc did not make my favorite list, but the PA5, honestly, I think it's more understable than the PA5. So I go to the closest course. I'm pumped to throw this thing, throw it out there. The thing, it's kind of like the wave in the sense that like when it flips really fast, and you're like, that's gonna burn. But then somehow it comes out, and it kind of makes it feel like it stays on this straight line. It doesn't feel like a turnover shot. It just feels like something that flips up and over really fast. You're like, oh, I'm stressed out, and then it comes out, as opposed to like some like the PA5, which honorable mention for like one of my favorite discs. That disc is, I would say, is actually more understable than the PA4, but it does everything much slower. So like the flip up, like these are the kind of shots that will just heal your soul when you watch them. The PA5, when you put it on hyzer, it pops up slowly and then continues late, just flipping, and you're like, oh, that's what I needed in my life. PA4 is just stress, just pure, just stress hormones, just coursing through my veins. Not a fan. PA4, not a fan. Fun while it lasted, but probably going to move on from that mold at this point. And I did, because there was a girl that came through. So if you guys follow me on social media, I've been trying to ace this one hole at one of my local parks. So unlike a lot of parks in our area, or a lot of courses in my local area, a lot of them are in the woods, so they're kind of away from like the seeing eyes of the public. This is like smack dab in the middle of a park, and hole one is like right by the entrance, so anyone that's coming in or out, walking their dog, going to play soccer, whatnot, they're passing right by me. So a lot of times, like, this is how I've had so many. Ben before made fun of me. He's like, how do you have all these weird experiences? Like, I've never had any of these before. This park is probably the reason for half of them, because you're fully exposed to anyone that's coming in and out of the park. So this girl comes in, she goes, I let her pass. Obviously, I'm not going to be chucking while she walks through. I'm still at the hole. She comes back through as I'm like about to walk up to collect my discs, and she like picks up one of my discs, Infinite Discs Tomb, which, shout out Andrew Manganelli. I don't recall if he said it on the podcast, but now he's a big fan of the Infinite Discs Tomb. That disc is super good. More on that later, though. So she picks up that disc, looks at it, has a cool stamp on it. It's from the Vacationland Open in 2019, which is like a tournament up in Maine that is now done with Thought Space, I believe. She throws it at the basket. She was stoked, and I was like, "Do you need some discs?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I'm like, "No, it's fine. I'm not like mad about it. It's all good. You're not like picking it up and giving it to your dog like the other dude that did that before." So I go up. I'm like, "Yeah, let me see what I have," because I brought some extra molds with me that day. Found the PA4, found the uplink, and dude, I also had a Star. This one hurt a little bit. Star PFN Leopard. Don't know why. I struggled to think of that right there. Star PFN Leopard. I was like, it's going to hurt to part with, but I want you to have something that you can, like, probably like the easiest disc I had that you could learn with if you ever want to go into drivers. So watching her throw, just like giving her like a couple like beginner pointers just to like have an idea of how to play the game. She was stoked. And the only reason that she was there, she like went up the road, getting her car worked on, walked down here. She's like, let me walk through the park. And now she has like a new hobby to try out. Whether or not she sticks with it, no idea. Hopefully she continues playing, enjoying the PA4, uplink, leopard, but would warm my heart if I happen to be playing out there and I saw her playing out there like in a few months. It would be super cool. Not a bad transition, going from talking about like hateful things where I'm like, yeah, I don't like this mold, and then going into probably what's going to be my more favorite, like, like talking about the things that I like. Hopefully you guys feel that too, where you're like, oh, I haven't really thrown that disc, but I'm feeling inspired today. So favorite molds, number one, no particular order. For whatever reason, for favorite molds, I kind of went through like each, we'll say, category of disc and try to come up with a disc for that. Try to get some sort of even spread as opposed to being like, yeah, I like 5 putters. That's pretty sick. Yeah, have fun buying all those, so trying them out. If you're a fan of the podcast, you probably know at this point what this one will be for the putter slot, but we're going to shout out, boom. We have the Hooligan Disc caches. Here I've got the Proto one, and then this one just came in yesterday or the day before, and I believe it's the just like stock. So Proto, for those that haven't thrown a cache, so earlier I mentioned the Tomb. I've struggled for so long to come up with a disc that's similar to the cache because it is kind of like a unique slot, sort of Envy-like in like the flight and how flat it is. But the Tomb, I think that is like the perfect disc as like a comparison. So the Tomb is kind of like the cache SS, we'll say. So like the much straighter version, but they're both like flat top, and they have like the little bead on the bottom here. So these Proto ones, had this one in my bag for a little bit. You smack it, and it goes just like super straight and then reliably slowly fades the whole time. Like very reliable mold, and that's why it's fun, because it's kind of like a step down from your zones, your tactics, your all that kind of stuff. Whereas these like stock ones, really excited about this because I love the cache, but I would like to cycle them. And this guy is, my other guy's gotten beaten in like a little bit at this point. But these stock ones have like the babyest little dome on them, and the parting line is slightly lower. So this one, I was very surprised yesterday throwing on that hole that I mentioned. I threw it on hyzer, and it popped up and pushed, and then like reliably faded. Again, never really found a mold that is super similar to this aside from the Tomb, but the cache is more overstable than those. I think it is worth your time to go check those out. I personally don't have a code. I know these boys do, but I stand by these. Super fun. The day will come where it's the only throwing putters that I have in my bag. Even if I wasn't on the team like Hooli doing stuff with them, I've been throwing this disc prior to that. Really good time. Please check them out. Number 2 here, I decided to go with approach discs. I'll be honest, I've never really found an approach disc that I was like, that feels like a very personal slot for a lot of people. I mean, you look at Robbie C, that's basically part of his identity at this point as a creator, even though he's throwing zones now. But for a long time I struggled because people, zone is gospel. And I'll be honest, zones are in my bag currently, but this is not the disc that I would choose. As you can see, I got Magmar on this zone. This zone, I thought it was going to be a beef dog. Not the case at all. I've never had this before. I get tricked by the like Z plastic or like any like clear premium plastic. I'm like, it's going to be overstable. It's going to be sweet. Just absolute piss missile. Laser beam. It's cool, but it's not what I was expecting at all, and it kind of messes with my brain a little bit. But the frisbee that I'm a fan of as like the approach disc slot are the tactics. I got all 3 of the Razor Claws here. 1, 2, and 3. Boy. Now you may be wondering, Nathan, if you like the tactic, like if the tactic is one of your favorite molds, why do you have zones in your bag currently? And it kind of goes back to that point that I mentioned before, where the zone, almost similar to the FD in the sense of when I would throw it, it would be either too overstable or not stable enough for the shots that I was throwing. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like I'm just not getting like a cool, clear connection with this disc. So I was like, oh, I'm going to figure it out then because people love it. And at this point, I figured out the zone, much less angle for those shots that you're going for. So in that sense, it has taught me more touch on like my sidearm and whatnot. But the tactic, I came back to it when I was trying to, because I've always loved it. I came back to it and I was like, it feels like home, man. It feels so good. It's deeper. You can really get it in like the meat of your hand for like the sidearm. Maybe I'll throw this Razor Claw 1 back in there because it's just the epitome of beast mode. But it would be painful to lose, let's be honest. Number 3, going on to mid-ranges. This is a disc that I disliked for the longest time. And I will be man enough to say that. Very basic mold. You know where I'm going with this. Will be the Discraft Buzz. Here I've got the one that's in my bag, dyed. I've got Smoochums right here. For those that don't know, that's a Pokemon. I like to draw a lot of Pokemon on my discs if that's not clear. That's just like my little thing. I like to draw, and that's kind of like a cool way I can customize my Frisbees. Now that I'm thinking about it, this kind of becomes a common theme in a lot of the discs and why you dislike them, certain ones, and why you love them. And it's because when you start out and you throw a disc, that really imprints on your brain about being like, I didn't like how that flew, or I like how that flew. And then as time goes on and you revisit some of these molds, you find that they fly completely different, and you're like, wait, that thing is sweet. Why did I feel this certain way about this? And that could happen with the Beast or the FD. I'm sure they will. But the Buzz, what really did it for me is when I was caddying for Austin Turner. And at that tournament, Austin ended up placing 8th overall at the MVP Open. And dude was smacking on buzzes all over the woods. And you hear people talk about Maple Hill. Not an easy course, man. People consider it like one of the more difficult courses on tour, if not the most difficult. And not really for the sake of OB and whatnot. Sure, there's like water and all that stuff, which is obvious OB. It's just like, it's a shot shaper's dream, we'll call it. And watching this dude smack a buzz on like a steep hyzer, and it just slowly flips up the whole way. So for those that know the course, hole 6 has been infamously the most difficult hole on the course up until the last 2 years, where they put in the first par 5 on the course, like par 4, par 5, like they would like mix between depending on the round. And that now plays as the most difficult. But hole 6 has OB rock wall on the right and then water on the left. And very, very specific shot. Being a lefty, of course, that helps Austin. But he just, like, I watched him just hit a buzz on hyzer, flip up slowly the whole way. And he was under the basket 3 of the 4 times. I'm watching him throw on hole 13, which is like a very downhill hole that has trees late that you kind of have to navigate to get to the basket. Same deal. And it made me rethink everything. Instead of me kind of throwing these, I'm going to flip up and get fancy and cute with these shots. Like watching him throw a buzz made me learn the importance of committing. So that man single-handedly changed my opinion. So I've got all these oldie guys that are just flipping all over the place. Big fan. So thank you, Austin. Or as he would say, Dada. Fairway drivers, this is a weird one. I don't know anyone else that throws these truly that isn't sponsored by this team. But I think people are sleeping on this mold. And that is going to be the Prodigy F3. Super overlooked. I found out about it because of Isaac Robinson over the last 2 years, being on Team Prodigy. And like I said, I wasn't like a big fan of the FD. Wasn't a big fan of like Cicada or like any of those other similar types of slots. So if you're new to the podcast, I've mentioned previously, my game is very much, I like more so neutral discs, whether it's like neutral to overstable, neutral to understable. And the F3 fits into that beautifully. So you can, it's like hit it flat, nose down, holds over the whole way, but like has integrity to pan out. You hit it nose down on hyzer, flips up, goes just dead straight. Hit it nose up on hyzer, just holds the hyzer. Like that is my dream frisbee. And I would encourage many of you to try it as well, because it is a good time, dude. You know, like I've got Magnemite here. I've got this Isaac Robinson one from when he won Champions Cup last year. So if you've thrown like any of those neutral fairway slots and you just found that you can't really connect with it, I would give this, like, highly consider this one. I know some people are not the biggest fan of 7 speeds because of the tiny rim in your hand. I I think this is just barely faster than that. It feels maybe 8-speedish in my hand. I don't even know what the flight numbers are for this. Please, I'm telling you, go find one. It's beautiful because, with all due respect to Prodigy, no one is buying the plastic here in New England. So I have copious amounts around here that I can just freely purchase. But I have enough at this point. Shout out Will Schusterick, the CEO now. Boy's going to change it. And number 5, distance driver. Very basic answer, so you're probably going to click off as soon as you hear it. Please don't, dude. I need this. I need this. The end of a Wraith. So I threw destroyers for a long time, and they're a great disc, obviously. They still, when I put one in my hand, it feels like home. But the Wraith, I felt like kind of taught me to be more smooth in my swing. So right around now, I probably throw like 375 golf line backhand. And a big thing for me has been learning just the importance of a power pocket. And it's like, cool, but what does that actually mean? Shout out to Overthrow Disc Golf. They had a really good video about learning to get the nose down and like things that you can do to get the nose down when throwing. And that really, like, that is like the thing that separated me all of a sudden, where I'm like, oh, boom, just consistently smooth hitting 375, just super easy, not trying. Because my game is very similar. I heard Missy Gannon say before that her throw is very like spinny and not like a lot of torque or like effort. And I could not relate more to hearing someone say that than when she mentioned that, because I'm never trying to like throw hard per se. And I'm not saying that as an excuse where it's like, yeah, I throw 375, but if I tried, dude, I could hit 475 all the time. Because genuinely, I think if I tried to throw hard, and it happens, I don't think I could throw much farther. And it's just learning to translate momentum into the swing, which is difficult for me currently. It's funny, you feel like you're not making progress, but then you think back to how hard you had to throw to get that distance. Now, dude, I'm not even exaggerating. It is so stinking easy for me to hit 375 now, and that excites me. It takes a lot of focus because I've basically learned form. This is an exaggeration. Form is a power pocket. So form is basically putting yourself in all these correct positions, and it's just like, how can you just maintain this pocket? Because there are certain things that you do that break it, where like maybe you come through, the elbow drops. Those are huge. So like having a disc like a Wraith, which for my arm speed is like pretty, typically like pretty neutral, I'll say, because I can do everything with it. It's like, it's perfect for me trying to learn and figure out like, okay, cool, I am hitting my Anheuser. I'm hitting my Heiser. So been just a good teaching tool in that sense. And I think the one that really, I threw Wraiths previously, but the one that for whatever reason that did me in was the Garrett Gurthie Halo Champion run from this year. It is for my arm speed, maybe like slightly on the understable side, but do everything max distance Frisbee. It's incredible, man. So if you have never really thrown a Wraith, because I'm sure those people are out there, or if they're just like unnecessarily difficult, being like, everyone throws Wraiths, I don't want to throw one, I get it. Dude, look at my hat and glasses. Like, I have a cup of coffee here. How many more signs do you need for me to be like the most hipster dweeb that you've ever seen in your life? If you're trying to go for like a more neutral Wraith, these are the ones, I'm just going to show you the ones that I have in my bag. So I have 4, and then it's like sets of 2, where like they both, 2 of them fly the same as each other, and then the other 2 fly the same as each other, kind of like backups, I suppose, where it's like, oh, if I lost one, I'd be screwed. So yeah, cannot recommend this run enough. No idea if they still exist out on the shelves. And then I have this Moondust Wraith. Boom, they fly like the exact same. Great for sidearm as well, obviously. I've talked a lot about backhand. My sidearm, I've developed this. Again, if you guys follow me on social media, you know I was cooking sidearms, like hitting them out there, 350 easy, not even a problem. Super stoked on it. For whatever reason, sometime right around going down to Worlds, all of a sudden, dude, my sidearm just It's like fell apart, we'll say. I developed this like weird hitch in like my reach back, quote unquote, where it like pulls my elbow and hand like offline. So it's almost like I have to come back under the disc. So I've developed like a lot of wobble and inconsistency in the release, which is a bummer. So right now on sidearm, I'm probably still throwing like 315 or something like that, but they're not. I had all the finesse in the world, could flip up mid ranges, like the flippiest drivers ever. And right now I don't have that. So it is disheartening, but it's fun to have something to work on, I suppose, even though every single time you throw a sidearm, you're like, dude, I'm going to cry. I'm just going to quit disc golf, leave my entire bag behind. Just going to keep working on that. So I have problems too, just like everyone else. If you're trying to go for the beef dogs, beef dog is kind of a strong word, but go for it. If you ever find this run of Wraith right here, I want you to listen to this pop top. It's just crazy. This is the best run of Wraith I've ever thrown in my life. Starts out overstable and as beaten up to just like a flip up, but then reliable fade sort of level. It is unreal, man. It is like, this has solidified my love for this mold. And then I have the shout out Maple Hill used rack. That's where I find so many cool gems, whatnot. I have the Garrett Girthy run from 2021, I think. Same deal. Starts out insanely overstable, but they go just dummy far. Can't recommend that enough. I'm just going to keep slowly burping in my own throat and trying to cover it up. I do have some PFN Wraiths that I love them, man, and they fly incredible. Kind of similar to like that GG run where they flip up, they do anything you want. But because they're like beat up at this point, I'm kind of afraid. Like when it comes to distance drivers, sometimes you just hit it just barely wrong. It'll flip over if it's like kind of a crazy wind, and see ya, gone forever. I know you like that disc, but I hope you can find another one. So they came out at that point. I don't really mind losing any of these. Sure, it hurts because I've been using them for a while, but doesn't hurt quite like a disc that isn't being made anymore. Those sick PFN Wraiths. That's all I got for you guys. I've been rambling on for a good amount of time here. Hopefully you guys got something out of that. The point of me trying to do a podcast like this, I don't know, kind of get some insight into like, I think why a lot of people like to make in the bags is because it shows your personality. It shows who you are, what you value, where you're at in your game, all these things. So you want to share that with other people. So hopefully people learned something about me and my game, or are inspired to try a mold, or are just straight up angry because I pooped all over the entropy. That's fine too. If you made it this far, thank you guys for listening. I think this is the second solo pod that I've done on here. If we do not have an episode next week, hope you enjoy your holiday however you see fit. Have some sweet food, laugh with your friends. Hopefully you can catch a cool round, try out some new discs that you potentially got. But until next time, guys, Funsie out.